Welcome to the NitWits, a weekly roundtable discussion on the Penn State Nittany Lions, now in its 23rd season. Our panel features a longtime Penn State media and NitWits tag team, Neil Rudell of the Altoona Mirror and Mark Brennan of Lions 247 with Fight on State. The NitWits are hosted by WTAJ's Jack Washer, and each week we welcome a former Nittany Lion as our special guest analyst. The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Encompass Health, a higher level of care. Encompass Healthcare. Ask for us by name. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed and Solaney Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntington. By Allegheny Street Cigar, Blair County's only cigar lounge. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing and heating and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Freedom RV, Freedom RV Rentals, your best vacation ever. By Remax Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage, no matter what type of weather, we are a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store. By Kogan Electric, lighting the way for you. By Lions 247 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday.
Welcome to Nittany Nation Overtime.
And welcome into Nittany Nation Overtime, Week 3 edition. I'm Jack Washer. We are back. Let's meet our esteemed panel from left to right on your TV screen. Mark Brennan from Fight on State, back after his 1-week hiatus. Neil Rudell from the Altoona Mirror, and former Penn State All-American defensive tackle and Grey Cup champion, Steve Smear. Steve, welcome.
Thank you.
Guys, all right, Penn State 0-2 for the first time since the Bill O'Brien era. Now, granted, Penn State doesn't have a non-conference schedule like, Kent State or, Pitt to kind of beat up on. They've had to deal with Indiana and now arguably one of the best teams in the country. But, watching that game last night, Neil, as they lose to Ohio State 38-25, what are your kind of big takeaways as, it looked bad at first and they kind of hung with them, but in the end, 0-2?
Yeah, I just think that they were beaten up front, and I thought that their offensive line would just be better. I thought they'd be able to run the ball even without established running backs. That probably was the biggest disappointment to me. Just the physicality up front on both sides of the ball that they didn't meet, and I'm glad we have Steve Smear here that can really kind of address it. But that stood out to me initially.
Yeah, and I agree with that wholeheartedly, but I would also say this team looked unprepared again. I mean, you had two situations where they're in the red zone and get delay of game penalties. You have a trying to hustle a extra defensive back onto the field after you call a timeout, and you end up giving up an easy touchdown. And then obviously the big mistake late by Sean Clifford. Sean Clifford has a tough first half, plays well in the second half, but then kind of wipes all that out with an interception. So I know this team is up against a lot, but every team is up against a lot, and it really doesn't look like the most well-prepared team out there, and I think it really hurt them first two games.
Steve, watching, I know you played on the defensive side of the ball, but watching someone like Justin Fields, I know, not to knock your era, but I doubt there was anybody as dynamic as him. What do you think it's like for a defensive line going up against arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the country?
Well, it's a tough situation because with Ohio State they have a great running, they have great runners and they have a good quarterback, and so consequently, you're in between. You don't know whether they're going to run against you, they're going to pass against you, so you have to be ready for both of those aspects. The thing that intrigued me is the first play. I was discussing this with Neil. On the first play of the game, it looked like we were in a slant away from to where the two tight ends were placed. And so we went away from the play. Normally, you would slant towards that situation. And so we had like 4 or 5 guys, 6 guys moving to the left, and consequently they run the play back with a reverse, and 62 yards later, I mean, that was a big play.
Yeah.
And I think it shook you, that kind of a thing will shake you up. It really will. It gets your confidence a little bit frazzled, and I just question what happened there. Whether that was planned, whether they could have made a change and gone back to the side where the two tight ends were.
Yeah, curious of their defensive leadership there. You have inexperienced linebackers in terms of maybe leading and making calls, particularly early in the game against a big-time opponent. I would look at Ohio State's receivers. How many years in a row has Penn State been beaten by these receivers where guys get free in the secondary, tackling has been poor? I'm talking about a trend against Ohio State these last few years.
Yeah, and to think, you talk about what Ryan Day did, the Ohio State coach in that game. They didn't even run Fields, and we all know he is a dangerous, dangerous runner. So if you're Penn State, I think that's of even greater concern. They didn't even bother running him because they didn't have to. He was picking him apart with his arm. Ryan Day was basically trying to keep him healthy for when they actually need him if they get to the college football playoff. So, yeah, I mean, Justin Fields, to me, I mean, that guy is as good a quarterback as we've seen, and we've seen a lot of good quarterbacks play against Penn State. But when you look at this defense, the safety seemed to be a real issue, and at points the linebacker play is an issue. Having said that, it definitely hurt them that Lucetta was not in there in the first half.
Mark Neal, you've been covering Penn State games a long time. How would you describe what it was like, what was supposed to be a whiteout game, and yet there was, maybe 1,000 people in there? I don't know what the exact numbers were, but it wasn't 110,000.
Did they list in attendance? I don't think
I
they
don't think they listed attendance.
I mean, it took a pandemic to solve the traffic problem on Atherton Street, which is a sad commentary, but it was just eerie to me. Walking up a couple hours before the game, you can say hello to the Ohio State families, people that you were parking with. You literally had a spot in front of Beaver Stadium. It was just very odd.
Yeah, and I think going back to Steve's point earlier in the game, how Penn State was kind of knocked off kilter. Typically, when you have that 107,000 behind you, they're going to help you rally. But to Neal's point as well, prior to the game, it was just an eerie quiet. It was so strange. But you can't use that as any sort of excuse for Penn State because every single team is confronted with the same thing.
Coming up next, we dive in deeper to what's going on with this team and potentially what should have been a strength of this team. That would be the O-line. Now, are they holding the offense back in 2020?
The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Encompass Health, a higher level of care. Encompass Healthcare. Ask for us by name. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed and Solaney Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntington.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
All right, welcome back to Nittany Nation Overtime here with the NitWits. Steve, you played defensive tackle. Watching Penn State's offensive line, at least through the first couple of weeks, do you feel that they are a little overwhelmed? This group had a lot of returning guys on that unit. What seems to be the problems from your perspective?
Well, we've been waiting for these guys, to finally put it all together, and it's been 3 years now for some of them that have been playing, and you don't know, are we ever going to see them really be able to knock people off the ball and pass protect? And I think Ohio State's defense just really manhandled them, and that I didn't expect that. I really didn't. Against Nebraska, I really didn't see that. I didn't see them manhandling, being manhandled by Ohio State, and Ohio State just took them apart. I mean, they had them, they didn't even blitz that much. They basically, with 4 people, stopped the run and had a tremendous pass rush. So it's unbelievable, that they couldn't hold back. They couldn't hold these guys out.
Some of the talent on Ohio State's team, both sides of the ball. when in the one play where the defensive end tackled the quarterback and the running back at the same time when there was an attempted handoff. But I get back to what you said about the organization and some of the preparation, coming off the Indiana game when it was a disaster at the end of the game. You've had 3 delay of game penalties. Clifford said he's got to react quicker. He said he's getting the play in time, but he's trying to, he needs to be quicker with his approach as well. But something has to give.
You can't blame the players on that. You just can't blame the players. I mean, even if it's a veteran player, listen, the coach, it's their job to have the players ready to do this. And on the one, I was stunned. We're sitting there in the press box, and you could see the play clock running down, and Franklin kind of jogs down and could have called a timeout, and James didn't do it. I mean, I don't know if he was saving that for later or what the story is, but I don't think you can blame, just like against, in the opener against Indiana, I don't think you can blame Devin Ford. I mean, you can blame him, but it's the responsibility of the coaching staff. And listen, I'll give Franklin credit. He said these things are inexcusable, and it's on the coaching staff, and it's true.
Now, granted, the running back room is depleted right now. No Journey Brown, no Noah Kane. You got a sophomore and 2 freshmen out there. And one thing Penn State said coming into this year is they weren't going to run Clifford as much, but it seems like that was abandoned 2 quarters into the season. Like, can he, I mean, I feel like that was the reason that he kind of struggled, because he got banged up so much down the stretch. Mark, is there a reason that you think he's running for his life, or there's more design runs and what they were anticipating going into this year?
Well, against Indiana, I don't think he was really in harm's way that much. Even on the long touchdown, if you looked, he was kind of just cruising. It wasn't and that's no disrespect toward his speed, but against Ohio State, he was running because he had to. I mean, the offensive line was not getting the job done. You cannot make a critical statements about their running backs against Ohio State because they had nowhere to run. So then what do? You have no choice but to run him, and that's a very dangerous thing. But as you look at it against the better teams on the schedule, he's going to have to do some things with his feet.
Well, it's been 35 times in two games that he's carried so far. Not all of them are designed runs, but there were some right up the middle that looked like they were quarterback draws, and I wasn't sure what they were trying to accomplish there.
Yeah. I think he's pretty lucky that he didn't get hurt, because he was really getting hit several times. In the backfield, he got hit very well by one or two or three guys, and that you can only take so many of those hits.
But those are on dropbacks, right? I mean, and that's the point. Is that so? If he doesn't run, then he's going to be sitting back there, and he's a sitting duck with this O-line. And I think it goes back to where we started this segment. This offensive line, there's no other way to say it. I thought it played relatively well against Indiana, but it was a disappointment against Ohio State. These guys have been around. I don't like to be overly critical of college athletes, but these guys have been around, and I think it's time for them to step up and show what they can do.
All right, coming up next, are the secondary struggles that plagued Penn State in 2019 lingering into 2020? We'll discuss that plus more next.
The NitWits are brought to you by Allegheny Street Cigar, Blair County's only cigar lounge. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing and heating and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Freedom RV Rentals, your best vacation ever. By Remax Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
All right, welcome back to Nittany Nation Overtime. Steve, in 2019, the pass defense was arguably a big weak spot on that side of the ball. And now in 2020, yes, they held Michael Penix to about less than 100 yards until about a minute to go, but then you really get exposed when you got Justin Fields back there. What are they not getting? What is the biggest issue with that unit?
Well, first of all, on a positive note, I think Joey Porter's played really, really well. I mean, he got beat for a touchdown, but that was a perfect pass and it was a great catch. So he's played really, really good football. I think, again, coordination between the guys. it's a passing game now, so you have to have safeties that can cover. And there's a question is whether we have a safety that can cover one-on-one. So, maybe we need to take a look at maybe one of the kids that is playing corner now to come in and play that slot position on defense, to take that slot receiver, because we need some help there as far as our secondary is concerned. And and I think Fields has played pretty good. At the other corner, although he did whiff on that touchdown. Not on the touchdown, but the 62-yard run.
Right.
He whiffed on that, which caused a major problem. But for the most part, I think they're better than last year. But because of Porter's play, but I think maybe they might have to make some changes back there on certain downs.
And this is where they are at 0-2. There's going to be a shorter leash on personnel-wise. I mean, I'm not as familiar with the next level of players that they have who aren't necessarily in there regularly. But when you're 0-2, at some point there's going to be probably some reevaluation of some guys.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they take a harder look at Jair Brown, the JUCO transfer. I mean, he's played a lot of football, albeit at a lower level. Hasn't been tremendous when he's been in there, but maybe has a little bit more of an upside. But to Steve's point, I mean, you look at the play where the receiver got behind Marquise Wilson, and there was no safety help whatsoever. And you have two veteran guys back there, in Wade and the other JUCO transfer who nobody got over to help, the young guy. So they really just need anybody to step up. And the other thing in that Ohio State game, very surprised they didn't get more of a pass rush.
Yeah.
Only 2 quarterback hurries and 2 sacks. Now the 2 sacks were both good. One was really good, but that's going to hurt when you have safeties who aren't great cover people. You absolutely need to have a pass rush, and they didn't have that when they needed it against Ohio State.
Yeah.
Now there were 2 big-time highlights in the game. There was the Jahan Dotson one-handed catch, and then the photo taken by Mark Brennan, keep in mind from about 60 yards away of that one-handed catch. Mark, I'll go back to you. Juwan Johnson had that incredible one-handed catch, but I don't think I've ever seen a play where he just sticks his paw up like that and it just sticks and it turns into a touchdown. I mean, how would you describe what you saw there?
Yeah, sometimes the things that are closest in the rearview mirror are the ones that kind of stick out to you. But I have to say that is as good a catch, maybe up with David Daniels in the Holiday Bowl, that I've ever seen from a Penn State receiver. And listen, what a game for that kid to step up. When you look at some of the negatives out of that game for Penn State, if you want to look at a gigantic positive, him emerging as a go-to receiver. You have somebody other than Pat Fryermuth who Clifford could get comfortable with, I think is just big, and I think it's going to allow those younger guys, what a catch. That thing was spectacular. And then he takes it in the end zone. I mean, it's like the Ohio State guys were like, oh my God, I can't believe this.
James says he generally doesn't like one-handed catches.
Like that one.
He'll take that one.
Yeah, for sure. Parker Washington, I think, has done a pretty good job so far. And Clifford has played well in the second half of both these games. They got to figure out a way to start quicker and get him and everybody more comfortable early. But I do want to tip to him because the second half he's shown a lot of tenacity.
Moxie.
Yeah, moxie. That's right.
But
one guy that I would, Jack, I'm sorry to
you're
interrupt,
good.
but one guy that I think really you cannot overlook is Jordan Stout.
Yeah.
Not only does he hit the 50-yard field goal, but he holds on Pinniger's field goal, and then he allows no return yards as the kickoff man and punter.
Yeah.
This against an Ohio State team that we know how explosive their athletes are. Right. He was my number 2 player of the game. I think Jordan Stout, getting him as a transfer from Virginia Tech, I do not know why Virginia Tech didn't give that kid a scholarship. They should have given him a scholarship because he's an impact player.
Yeah, he averaged 49 yards on 4 punts.
Absolutely.
All right, coming up next, no better medicine than a team you beat by a combined 157 points in the last 3 years. Prediction time. That's next.
The NitWits are brought to you by Dorman's Jewelry. The answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage. No matter what type of weather, we are a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store. By Kogan Electric. Lighting the way for you. By Lions 247 with Fight on State. your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
50.
All right, welcome back to Nittany Nation Overtime. The schedule softens a little bit now. You got Ohio State out of the way. Now they take on Maryland, who they've outscored 163-6 the last 3 years. Steve, how much does that help when you kind of get the tough part of your schedule done? Normally that kind of is normally in the middle of the year because you normally have non-conference, but just a relief knowing that you're not going to be overwhelmed. It's not going to be an incredibly emotional game. Or is that potentially a trap going up against the Maryland team?
Well, it could be a trap game, but hopefully these guys are ready to play football because they are 0-2, and it's their team, so they have to get back into the winning game of playing football, and I think these guys will rise to the occasion. Maryland wants to beat Penn State so badly. I mean, the people of Maryland, I've lived there since 1976, and it really bothers them that they have not been able to really beat Penn State very often. And in fact, I think they've only beaten us about 2 times in the last 40 or 50 years. So this would be a great game for them to win, plus recruiting as well. I mean, that would really hurt us in recruiting, I think. So I know they're psyched. They want to beat us, and hopefully, we're going to rise to the occasion. And we have 6 games. We're going to go 6-2 now. We've lost 2 games. We're going to turn it around and finish the season on a winning note.
All right. Let's take a look at the updated Nitwit of the Year standings. Now, Mark wasn't here. Tyler was in a spot last week, but since Tyler's technically a guest, we're giving the guests a win. And, well, Steve, since you are our guest, we're going to let you go first. Penn State is about a 3-touchdown favorite against Maryland Saturday, 3:30 p.m.
I am going to go Penn State 40 and Maryland 21.
Nice.
Neil?
Okay, well, I'm glad Jack made the executive decision. I guess I tried to give you a ball from last week.
Right, you guys are cahoots.
No, honestly, I did. Just the kind of guy I am.
Tyler represented the Lions 247 well.
This can't be a trap game because Penn State's already been trapped. They're in the trap.
That's true.
Trap door.
Yes.
I'm going to say, it's a big, huge line. I'm going to go ahead and say Penn State 37, Maryland 22.
Yeah, this Maryland team has some better offensive weapons. Well, we've said that the last couple of years, but I think to his younger brother, having watched him, that kid has, you talk about a kid with some moxie and can do some things. I think Maryland's going to score some points. I'm going to give Maryland 27 points, and I'm going to give Penn State 44. Sean Clifford, who we were seeing there, said after the game he doesn't intend to let these guys, kind of let this season evaporate. They're really going to have to put their money where their mouth is and come back. So 44-27, high-scoring game.
High-scoring game. Well, I got Penn State 45, Maryland 14. I watched Maryland play against Northwestern. Northwestern's not a bad team, but Maryland looked completely lost. Yes, they played a lot better against Minnesota, but I think, as someone said, the boat has sank up in the Twin Cities with PJ Fleck. So Penn State 45, Maryland 14. That's all the time we have left in our show. We'll see you next week, hopefully with a Penn State win in mind. For Mark, Neil, and Steve, I'm Jack. We'll see you next week.
The Nitwits have been brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Encompass Health, a higher level of care. Encompass Healthcare. Ask for us by name. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed and Solani Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntington. By Allegheny Street Cigar, Blair County's only cigar lounge. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing and heating and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Freedom RV, Freedom RV Rentals, your best vacation ever. By Remax Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage, no matter what type of weather, we are a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store. By Kogan Electric, lighting the way for you. By Lions 247 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.